Hello Year 3, it's Miss Hendy here for today's reading skills lesson. I hope you are all well and are looking forward to learning more about how to invent our text that we have started reading. So before we start, I'd like you to press pause, write today's short day and vipers and circling the V for vocabulary. So first, we are going to recap what the vipers stand for. So V for vocabulary, I for infer, P for predict, E for explain, R for retrieve, and S for summarize. And we're going to focus today on vocabulary. Now, vocabulary is basically the words, okay? Vocabulary is just words. And we're going to find and explain the meaning of those words in context. Okay, so that means how they're being used. So our current text is How to Invent by Lynn Huggins Cooper. And in this book, we're going to be having timelines. So the pages that we're focusing on today, the inventions that we'll be looking at, there'll be timelines. Can you remember what a timeline is? Can you make links to our history of the Stone Age through to the Romans? And does that help you remember what a timeline is? So a timeline is, well, I guess it's like a line, but basically it's the order of what events and what they happened in based on the date or the time. So we call that order chronological order. And when we started our history topic of the journey back through time, we looked at timelines and we made our own. So we looked at you from when you were born all the way until you started Carbill in Year 3, and we looked at the key things that happened in your life, and that was your own personal timeline in the date and time order. So let's get started. So first of all, on pages 8 to 9, we have the Rubiks Cube. So Erno Rubik invented the Rubiks Cube in 1974 when he was teaching art and design in Budapest, Hungary. He liked to invent puzzles to help his students think about 3D shapes. He created a wooden model of his puzzle and everyone was fascinated by the way it moved. The cube is made up of 26 movable blocks. Each side has 9 squares and there are 54 coloured block faces in total. Follow the arrows. To start with, each side of the cube has one colour. Twisting the cube mixes up the colours. There are more than 43 quintillion possible moves, but only one correct solution. In 1975, a Hungarian toy manufacturer started producing the cubes and they appeared in the shops in 1977. In 1979, the Rubik's Cube became available around the world. More than 350 million cubes have since been sold. Other games. After the success of the original cube, other puzzles were released, including a cube with more pieces called Rubik's Revenge. That's this one up here. Rubik's 360 Puzzle, Rubik's Twist, and Rubik's Touch Cube, a touch-sensitive version with no moving parts. Okay, have any of you ever solved the Rubik's Cube? I've never actually managed to do it, so I'm quite intrigued if any of you have beaten Miss Hendy to solving a Rubik's Cube. Okay, so in 1974, we're going to look at our timeline now. We have the first wooden model of the Rubik's Cube created. Then in 1975, the cube is mass produced, so that means lots of them are made, okay, so for a big audience. Then in 1977, the cube appears in stores in Budapest, Hungary. It is initially called the Magic Cube. Okay, so they obviously changed the name to be named after the person who invented it, which is Erno Rubik. Rubik's Cube is in 1980. The Rubik's Cube is made Toy of the Year. Woohoo! And then 1981, You Can Do the Cube, a book telling people how to solve the puzzle, is released and sells 1.5 million copies. And then in 1999, Rubik's Cube celebrates its 25th anniversary. And then in 2014, Beyond the Rubik's Cube exhibition opens. Okay, and that is the Rubik's Cube. Shall we find out about our next invention? We have the bicycle. So the bicycle. Bicycles were introduced in the 1800s, and there are now more than 1 billion of them around the world. The first bicycle was known as a dandy horse. It was an odd contraption that the rider had to push along with his or her feet. You can see it down here on our timeline, look. So by the 1860s, bone-shaking machines such as the penny farthing were rattling around the streets. They made for an uncomfortable ride. I'm not surprised, look at it. The penny farthing was named after 2 coins, the large penny and the small farthing. In 1885, John Kemp Starley invented the safety bicycle. It had 2 similar-sized wheels, driven by a chain, and a hollow steel frame which made the bicycle lighter. Crucially, so most importantly, it also had a steerable front wheel, which earlier bicycles did not have. So some of the first bikes, you weren't able to turn your front wheel like you are today. And finally, bicycle rides became even more comfortable in 1888 when John Dunlop, this person here, introduced a pneumatic tyre which was cushioned with air. Let's have a little look at our timeline. Can you ride a bike? Would you think you'd be able to ride a bike if it's still like the penny farthing? Okay, our timeline, 1817. The dandy horse is invented. Seems like still a lot of hard work. It's a bit like walking, but you've got to carry a bike with you, really. 1860s, a French inventor, probably Ernest Michel, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that one, adds the first pedals to a bicycle. 1885, the invention of the safety bicycle. 1888, pneumatic tyres are invented. In 1960s, light racing bicycles with dropped handlebars become popular. Then 1996, mountain biking introduced as an Olympic sport. Now on to our next invention. So our next invention is page 32 to 33, something I think a lot of you might be a little bit more interested in. We have the Xbox Kinect. Released in 2010 by Microsoft, the Xbox Kinect uses facial, voice, and gesture recognition to make players feel like they are part of a video game. People have also started using Kinect in more important ways, such as saving lives. Did you know that? Here we have moving around controls on-screen characters. The Kinect uses 3D cameras, microphones, and laser sensors to detect your movements. It then makes the character move the same way. The Kinect can be hooked up to an MRI scanner, then controlled by hand and voice commands. This allows doctors to see pictures to guide their work without touching a keyboard and risking contamination. That's quite good, isn't it? So they're not touching the keyboard, which could have germs and things on. So instead, they're using it by hand and voice commands. It can also be used for keyhole surgery, where it controls the movement of robotic instruments inside the body. Surgeons using Kinect to perform an operation. And then one day, surgeons may be able to use Kinect technology to perform surgery remotely, operating on people in hard-to-reach places such as disaster zones and battlefields. That's really interesting. Hopefully there's no disaster zones and battlefields, but we'd rather have none of those. But the fact that they might be able to get there to help people because of this technology is fantastic. So let's have a little look at the timeline. So in 1972, Atari launches Pong, the first commercially successful video game. 1977, Atari releases the Atari 2600. It's probably pronounced differently, like 2600 or 2600. I'm not entirely sure. One of the most successful video game consoles ever. 1978, Space Invaders released. 1988, Sega releases the Mega Drive video game console. Now, Miss Hendy does have a little confession because I still have one of those in my attic. Okay. 1994, Sony releases the PlayStation. 2001, Microsoft releases the original Xbox. 2010, Kinect is released. In 2013, Microsoft releases the Xbox One with Kinect sensors. There you go. So your task for today, you have vocabulary questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. I will go back to the page, but I do understand it might be a bit small, a bit blurry. So you can close the video and you can get the questions from the files, and the text is also available on there, and it tells you what pages of text it is as well. So question number 1. Find one word in the first paragraph that shows that people were really interested in the Rubik's Cube. So we're going to find one word that shows that people are really interested, and it tells us it's in the first paragraph. So in this first paragraph, we want to find a word that tells us people are really interested in the Rubik's Cube. Press pause. Question number 2, still about the Rubik's Cube. We've got page 8 to 9. Which phrase on the timeline, so it's telling us where to look, means to make a large amount of something? Which phrase, so it's more than one word, on the timeline means to make a large amount of something? So looking at the timeline down here, which word means to make a large amount of something? Press pause. Okay, so we're going on to question number 3 now. And the question number 3 is on page 22, 23, and this is about the bicycle. So it says, find and copy a phrase in the first paragraph which shows the dandy horse, so there's some words that we can scan and look for, was a strange machine. So we want to find a phrase in that first paragraph which shows that the dandy horse was a strange machine. Okay, so looking at the first paragraph here. This one here. Can we find a word that means says that the dandy horse was a strange machine? Okay, and question number 4. So we're now moving on to our Xbox Connect, sorry. So page 32 tells us which page this one's on. Find and copy a word on this page which means to identify the presence of someone. So on this page, can you find a word that means it identifies the presence of someone? It could be in this paragraph here. Press pause. And finally, question number 5. Find and copy a word on this page which means to pollute or to infect. Now, I may have given you a little clue when I was talking about the germs. So where on this page, so not that bit, this bit here, can you find a word that means to pollute or infect? Think about what they were trying to stop getting the germs on. Press pause. And once you have finished all of those, we are going to go through the answers. So get your purple pens ready. If you need more time, obviously just press rewind the video and go back to the parts that you need. Are we ready? Purple pens in hand. Question number 1. Find one word in the first paragraph which shows that people are really interested in the Rubik's Cube. Just one word we need to find, and it was fascinated. Question number 2, which phrase on the timeline means to make a large amount of something? And I did give you a little clue actually when I was reading the text. It was mass produced. Question number 3, Find and copy a phrase in the first paragraph which shows the dandy horse was a strange machine. Well, it didn't say strange machine, it said an odd contraption. Question number 4. Find and copy a word on this page which means to identify the presence of someone. And that word was detect. Now that one was quite a tricky one, okay? So to be able to detect means to identify the presence of someone. Question number 5. Find and copy a word on this page which means to pollute or to infect. It was risking contamination. I'm happy with just the word contamination because it said a word. And finally, your task is to match the inventions up with their benefits, so what they help people to do. So we have the Rubik's Cube, bicycle, Xbox Kinect. So which one uses facial and voice recognition to guide things on a screen? Which one encourages people to think and solve problems? And which one is an environmentally friendly way to travel, which keeps people healthy? Press pause, have a little go. Okay, are we ready for the answers? So a Rubik's Cube encourages people to think and solve problems. The bicycle is an environmentally friendly way to travel, which keeps people healthy. And the Xbox Kinect uses facial and voice recognition to guide things on a screen. And once you've done that, what I'd like you to do is think about which of those do you think is the best invention? And why? That's the most important bit. Why do you think that's the best invention? And that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about some of the inventions and looking forward to learning about a few more. Take care, Year 3. Bye.